function. You can also use the chat function to introduce yourself and where you're from. Remember to change the to option to all panelists and attendees, because otherwise only me and Josh can see it. A couple of housekeeping notes before I introduce our speaker. So we are recording the session, just so you're aware, and you can use the Q&A function to submit any questions that you might have throughout the session. With that being said, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Joshua Dickinson. So Josh got involved with fundraising whilst at university and currently works for Rays of Sunshine Children's Charity. He's also the social media and marketing manager for NASFA, so you're in very good hands.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ree, for the introduction. And hello, everybody who's joined the webinar so far. Thank you so much for coming. And I really hope that you get a lot out of the session. We don't know really if this talk is going to be the full 50 minutes, but we're just going to wait and see how it goes. So how the session works, Ree's already gone over some of this stuff. So basically ask your questions using the chat and put your name and organisation if you can, so we know who you are. We'll, like I said as well before, we'll aim to finish the session at the scheduled time, but we will be going into the coffee shop afterwards to continue having conversations with all of you. So we'd really enjoy if you're able to join us there. And just a quick note as well that the session is being recorded. So if you do need to leave at any point and you're afraid that you might miss out on a few hints and tips, no need to worry. We'll put out a notice on all of the NASFA social media channels as to when this session is posted. So when creating this session or presentation, I could have gone into a lot of detail about social media and marketing in general, but I'm aware that a lot of you are just students who are trying to fulfill their RAG or student group roles alongside their full-time studies. So my aim in this session really is to go over the basics and necessities of social media and marketing so that your RAG or student group can really maximize their engagement and increase their fundraising totals as well. So just to quickly go over the contents of the presentation, I'm just going to be going over quickly why it's important that you promote your student group or RAG effectively, ways to promote your RAG, more of the traditional methods. I'll then be going over social media algorithms. It's not as daunting or as techy or as complicated as it sounds, I promise you. I'll then be going over basically just lessons that we can learn from that, then branding, sustainability, creating a communications plan. And if there's any questions that any of you still have to ask me at the end of the session, we'll just allocate about 5 to 10 minutes for that as well. So just to give a quick introduction to me, from my job title that's been posted obviously on our social media channels and whatnot, I am the Community Fundraising Officer at Rays of Sunshine, which doesn't really give the most obvious inkling as to why I'm qualified to present a session on promoting your RAG. But I was an FXU RAD alumni and I managed a lot of our social media channels there. And we did win Student Fundraising Group of the Year in 2019 at the NASFA Awards, just to give a quick brag. I also worked as a communications consultant for Zurich Community Trust, and as has already been mentioned, I am the Community Fundraising Officer for Rays of Sunshine Children's Charity, which does involve liaising with marketing and communications officers to promote our events and fundraising initiatives. So it's a really obvious question that I thought I'd start out with, but why is it important that you promote your student group or RAG effectively? Well, given that we have entered a period which a lot of people are calling the new normal, in a COVID-19 world, it's really important that RAGs and student groups target students in innovative ways. So high levels of virtual engagement are going to be crucial to your RAG or student group achieving your recruitment and fundraising targets. And the other point as well, simply, it's just common sense. Any university group or society that wants to maximize their engagement with students needs to know how to promote itself effectively. So there's a lot of standard ways that you can promote your RAG and what a lot of RAGs have practiced for a long, long time. So social media being the staple, you know, posting your events, sharing any information about Freshers Weeks, you know, RAG Weeks, challenge information talks, you know, Hitch events such as Lost, Jailbreak, Race 2, all of the traditional events that RAGs might run. Freshers and volunteering fairs, again, engaging, you know, bright-eyed and enthusiastic students when they come into university. Obviously, this year that will change a little due to COVID-19. Canvassing halls as well. So going door knocking and engaging students face-to-face is often one of the most effective ways to get students to sign up to your RAG and to participate in your activities or any other student group for that matter of fact. Print media as well, such as posters, newsletters, flyers. If you haven't been told off or received a complaint from facilities management on your university campus when you're trying to promote your RAG, you haven't done it in the right way. Radio as well, email, and also the traditional lecture shout outs where you might pass around a sign up sheet for people to be added to an email list, and encouraging people to come along again to information talks and events that your RAG or student group might be running. So you can implement all of these methods to promote your RAG or student group, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful when promoting yourselves. It needs to be done in a very, you know, it needs to be done in an effective and sometimes a calculated way, which is why I thought I would briefly come on to the topic of social media algorithms, which are basically the science of social media platforms. And again, it's not as daunting or as geeky as it sounds. But to start off, what are social media algorithms? They're essentially a way of sorting posts and users' feed based on their relevancy instead of published time. All social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, use algorithms in order to sort the content that you see pop up onto your feed. And social media networks prioritize which content you see based on the likelihood that you'll actually want to see. So to give a few examples, you'll probably see your best friend's posts on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter appear at the top of your newsfeed in comparison to, you know, one of your acquaintances or somebody that you might not really interact with that much. Or in another scenario, which a lot of people might be able to identify themselves with, if you end up, for example, searching on Google that you're looking for a new piece of furniture, fitness equipment, plants, anything like that, you'll have advertisements pop up on your social media feeds for items or products which are related to what you were looking for. It's a pretty freaky thing that they know all of this stuff, but your phone as well, if it picks up that you're having a conversation about, again, like TVs, furniture, like, you know, anything, it will basically take that information, and on your social media platform, bang, an advert will pop up related to the thing that you're having a conversation about with your friend. It's a bit freaky, but that's just the way that that social media works. And before a switch to algorithms, most social media feeds displayed posts in a traditional chronological order. So for example, if I posted at 4 p.m. and Rhiannon posted at, you know, 3 p.m., my post would appear at the top and hers would appear below mine. But social media platforms don't operate on that basis anymore. And some RAGs and student groups do operate their social media channels in a way that would be advantageous if this system still existed, but it doesn't. And that's why it's really important that RAGs or student groups really understand like the importance of social media algorithms in order to really increase engagement with their events and fundraising initiatives. So I'll briefly just go over algorithms that different social media platforms have. So first of all, Facebook, they currently rank posts each user sees in the order, again, that they're likely to enjoy them based on a variety of factors, which they call ranking signals, a bit of a technical term. But they have three categories of ranking signals. One of them is who a user typically interacts with, the type of media, and the popularity of the post. With Instagram as well, it relies on three ranking signals similar to Facebook. So the relationship that you have with somebody, so how many DMs you might exchange with somebody, you know, who you tag in your posts or other posts, you know, whose posts you comment on, what posts you like, what posts you share, interest as well. So what posts have you enjoyed in the past, and timeliness. So Instagram times like to push recent posts near the top of users' feeds, but this isn't always the case. With Twitter as well, again, really similar to Facebook and Instagram, it doesn't fluctuate that much. It relies on 5 key ranking signals, so recency, relevance, engagement, media, and followers and account locations. So, you know, again, things such as, you know, how recent the tweet was published, how often people engage with tweets that use some of the keywords, how many retweets, impressions, and favorites a tweet has. Again, pretty similar to what Facebook and Instagram practice. But overall, the main lesson that you can take away from all three algorithms from these sites is that just posting something isn't enough. You need to be strategic about it, and you need to have people engage with it. And what will determine essentially, you know, whether people engage with your posts is if they see it and the content itself. So I want to go over now, obviously, it's a bit, that was all basically jargon about ranking signals and whatnot. So you might be thinking, wow, it's interesting to know, but how do you actually apply it when it comes to promoting your RAG or student groups? So I basically made 2 slides, which are effectively lessons that you can learn from these algorithms and how you can put that information into practice. So the first point, which I thought was really, really important, was that on your social media platforms, where and when you can, try and start conversations. The typical case, it's not just RAGs and student groups, but a lot of companies and actually just social media influencers or groups are guilty of this. They'll put up a post, but they don't actually engage with the people who engage with that post. So, you know, if somebody posts a comment on one of your, you know, event posts or just a general promotion that you might have, actually interact with that person. Like if they send a congratulations for you hitting like a fundraising target, just say thank you so much, you know, and like it's as simple as that. And if you see posts on, you know, your social media feed which you think are relevant and interesting to your RAG, and you can, and there is a way that you can contribute to the conversation that that post is trying to initiate, actually interact. Because what that will do is that will make people aware of your presence on social media, but also in the future as well, it will increase the likelihood that they're going to see your post or your promotion. Another important lesson as well, which might be a fairly obvious one to some people, is post when your audience is online. For the simple reason, if they're online, they're going to see it. It's as simple as that. If you do post when your audience is offline, the post will most likely be pushed down the social media feeds, so they won't be as likely to see it when they next come on social media. Another lesson as well is where possible, use video. Facebook and Instagram especially, in their algorithms, place very like heavy emphasis on the use of video, because they want their platforms more than anything to have more video and pictures rather than text. One, because it looks more visually appealing, and two, video has been a proven medium through which people are more likely to engage with. So if that means that, ways that you can do this, if you're announcing something, for example, you might be launching, a Hitch event such as Jailbreak or Race 2, get one of your Hitch officers to record a video announcement and then post it with a link to the Facebook event page, for example. Or when you're creating event pages for challenge information talks, for example, if you're promoting like Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp, or a marathon or a skydive, in the Facebook event cover banner, try and use video where you can. This is just for the simple reason that when this event appears on somebody's social media feed, if they see that video, it will bring more attention and they're more likely to engage with it. I know that a lot of challenge companies like East African Playgrounds and Choose Your Challenge, for example, they have a lot of videos which advertise in their treks. So simply just message them and ask to obtain the video and just upload it onto the event page. The other important point as well is to be consistent. So it's all good and well if your RAG does post something every now and again, which is advertising, again, an event or a challenge that might be ongoing. But if you really want to be noticed on social media, be consistent with your posts. So that means having a schedule of posts throughout the week. That might be, one post a day for, 3 or 4 days out of the week. Or it might be more frequent than that if you can manage. If you're not consistent with your postings, it's fairly obvious you'll get less engagement. People will notice you less as a whole. The next point, social media ambassadors. This is something that I've seen a lot of RAGs experiment with, and it's something that the corporate sector now actually tries to implement, on quite a much more prominent basis. If you can find people within your volunteer network, on campus, or even your own committee, to share your posts and to like and interact with them, that will increase the likelihood that people outside of your regular audience are going to engage with the content that you put out there. It can be, like I said, as simple as somebody just sharing a post and saying, check out, your RAG or your student group, and encouraging people to sign up. It's similar to the concept of social media influencers, if anybody's ever heard of that, except it's just on a much more casual and kind of like, low-key scale. And another lesson as well is hashtags. So social media companies and platforms, in their algorithms, they place an emphasis on using the right hashtags and posts. So for example, if you upload a picture, which is somebody stood there with a fundraising bucket, make sure you use relevant hashtags such as, kind of like fundraising, bucket collection, charity, etc., etc. If it has those relevant hashtags, again, the post is more likely to be seen by a wider audience and engaged with. And again, more lessons which can be learned is collaborate. So if you can collaborate with any other societies or university groups across campus in order to promote your events and your posts, do that. Again, it exposes you to a large audience and it's more interaction, which is what the social media platforms in their algorithms absolutely love. Try and keep trendy as well. A very simple tactic, the more posts that you put out there which are relevant to what social media platforms are focusing on. For example, recently, the Black Lives Matter movement, it's more likely to get attention and engagement and push to the top of people's social media feeds. I would also highly, highly encourage your RAG or your student group to target your marketing where possible. And what I mean by this is specifically aimed at RAGs who are partnered with challenge companies to run challenges over the upcoming year. These challenge companies, again, people like East African Playgrounds and Choose Your Challenge, they will usually allocate a social media budget behind promoting event pages and the challenges that you're running. In the current climate, I don't know if that's what they're still planning to do, but it's always worth asking. Cooperate with them to make sure that if they are advertising, for example, a marathon challenge that you might be running, that they actually target that social media advertisement at the right groups of people on your campus. So if you're advertising a marathon, for example, you'll want to promote that event to, sports clubs and societies on campus much more than probably, for example, more academic courses. Again, not to make a stereotype, but it's just for people who are involved in student sports clubs and, societies are more likely to sign up to a marathon by nature. As a RAG, sorry, before I jump, use social media analytics. So if you go onto Facebook or Twitter or even Instagram, if you have switched it to a business account, look at your social media analytics and get to know your audience. So look at, what the demographics are, so what their ages, what their genders are, kind of when they're online, what posts they have engaged with as in the past, what they seem to enjoy. Because if you get to know your audience, you'll be able to tailor your content a lot better and ensure that your social media strategy is a lot more tailored to the people who you're trying to reach. So essentially, know what works for you. There's no set way, there's no winning formula for every single group and, RAG out there. There are, as I've outlined in this presentation, there are several techniques and tips that you can follow, but at the end of the day, you need to know what works for you and you need to know your audience in order to tailor your content so that you can achieve the best outcomes for your RAG or student group. I'd also really encourage you as well, in some way, shape or form, to try and incentivize engagement amongst your audience. This can be something simple. For example, RAGs at Freshers' Fairs in the past have set up competitions where students have to like or follow their Instagram and Facebook pages in order to enter a draw for a prize. Little things like that can go a long way. And even if somebody does like or follow your Instagram page and they don't actually have any intention of keeping up to date with it, they just wanted to enter the draw to get that free thing. You never know, they might actually end up coming across a post of your RAG or student group one day, which is advertising an event that you're running, and they might think, oh, I actually want to go along to that. And then it snowballs from there. I'd also, if you can, again, given the current climate, I know it would probably be extremely difficult, try and allocate from your RAG group or student group budget a portion of that to go towards targeted, social media advertisement. The reason why I say this is because a lot of, social media platforms, including Facebook and Twitter, they are much more generous in where your social media post appears if you pay them. It's not rocket science, but over the past couple of years, Facebook and Instagram, unfortunately, have deliberately decreased the organic reach that your posts will have if you do not put paid advertisement behind them. Again, it's just been a way for them to increase their revenue. But the good news behind that is, or the silver lining to that is that social media advertisements at the minute, in comparison to traditional marketing methods, are actually quite underpriced. So they're quite cheap given the amount of people that they reach and the potential engagement that they can give you as well. And the final point is try and find volunteers. So, for graphic design, for making videos, anything to do with marketing and social media. There usually is plenty of students on campus who are looking to increase, who might be looking to add stuff to their portfolios, for example, if they're, a designs and communications student or anything to do with general marketing and graphic design. Whilst I was at FXU RAD, for example, we didn't have any problem finding, students to help with our graphic design and our video production. Acknowledged Falmouth is a very, different place compared to a lot of other universities, because Falmouth University is a, an arts university by its nature. But there might be a few people on your campus or at your university that you can find. Or even if you, are able to find people who help with scheduling your social media posts, researching and producing content, again, that will go a long way to promoting your RAG and student group and to reaching as many people as possible. And it will decrease your workload, which is what every RAG committee or student group committee loves if they get the chance to do it. The next point that I want to get onto as well, which is really, really important, is branding. So you can implement a great social media strategy in terms of the posts that you put out, when you put them out, who you interact with, and all the other points that I've just gone over. But your RAG or student group needs, in my opinion, and it's essential to have a good brand. So what I mean by that is your logo really your logo? So when your post appears on the social media feed and people see your profile picture and they see your RAG logo, do they instantly recognize that, right, that is Warwick RAG, that is Plymouth RAG, that is, Carnival, for example, or Manchester? Do they know that that is your RAG that is putting that post up? So, is your logo distinctive and does it have an identity? Do people recognize it straight away? That is really, really important. Also, I would encourage you as well to look at your social media profiles and actually, see if they're up to date, and if not, update them. I've seen plenty of RAG and student group social media profiles which are horrendously out of date. They still have, old committee, member structures in them. The description of the student group or the RAG might not actually fit what, their general strategy or purpose is anymore. Also, I would really encourage you as well to ask yourself, what is your personality? And what I mean by that is that when you are putting up social media posts, how do you want to come across to people that you're interacting with? So what type of language use, what type of, how enthusiastic do you sound? Like, are you casual? Are you more serious? Do you look to engage people in, more fun and, jovial ways? Or do you look to engage them in a way which is more, is better in terms of trying to, initiate a serious debate on a serious topic? So I'd really encourage you to think about that question. And what is your personality and how do you come across to people? Because one of the main things that does drive engagement in social media and marketing is content, but what is equally important is how do you make people feel? What emotions do you invoke? Because people are going to be more likely to engage with the content that you post if, it makes them feel good, if they get a certain emotion from it. If you put out a post and it's generic and it's somewhat vanilla and, they've seen and heard it before, it's not really gonna spark any type of enthusiasm in them. So it's really, really important that you try and invoke, positive emotions in people that will want to make them engage with your RAG and student group and the promotion material that you put out there. It's also really important to ask yourself, who are you trying to appeal to? So you as a student group or a RAG, as much as, you would probably love to, and as much as I wished that we could when I was a committee member at FXU RAD, you can't appeal to every single student on your campus. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You know, not everybody's going to be interested in fundraising and volunteering. So you need to ask yourself, who are you trying to appeal to? And when you ask yourself that question, you really should find ways of how, you should really, figure out answers to the questions such as, who are you going to tailor your social media content to? And that really should be aimed at the people who you know are going to want to engage or interact with you, or who you think are going to potentially want to engage and interact with you. Um, you know, a similar example to what I was saying before, if you're promoting a marathon challenge, people in academic societies are less likely to engage with that type of event than people in sports societies and groups at universities. And again, the next point was similar to what I just said, but who you're trying to appeal to, it impacts your promotion plans. So, just ask yourself, how does it impact, kind of like the scheduling of your posts? And again, who you're targeting, what group you're targeting your marketing towards as well. After all of that, I know it's a lot of information to take in. I just wanted to provide you with a quick example of a RAG social media profile that I've came across lately, which I think has done a good job at trying to implement a lot of those hints and tips, and has done it especially well during the current climate that we live in, which is Warwick RAG. If there's anybody here from Warwick RAG, congratulations, you made it onto the presentation. But so I chose Warwick RAG simply because I think there's a lot of things in their social media profiles and the way that they've conducted their general marketing, which really stands out, and which I think that a lot of RAGs and student groups can learn from. And also as well, it's been done in a way that is very achievable and sustainable for students who are simply running social media profiles alongside their full-time studies and probably having, a part-time job and other social responsibilities that they're having to take care of. Because at the end of the day, not everybody is paid to do social media promotion and marketing, unfortunately. So with Warwick RAG, the one thing that really stands out, in my opinion, from looking at their profile straight away, is that they have a recognizable logo. As soon as I see that logo anywhere, I know it's Warwick RAG, like straight away. There's no question about it. I don't even need to see the Warwick written along the side. The red line with the RAG in it and the raising and giving branching out, it's very distinctive. The other thing that I've noticed from Warwick RAG social media profiles is that they're up to date. So the descriptions are up to date. Their cover photos and whatnot are up to date. They've also focused as well, which I've really liked, a use of video. They've been posting, I think, weekly kind of like charity of the week, like interviews with, various charity representatives. And that has often appeared on my feed and NASFA's social media profiles as well. So that's been a positive of their social media promotion and marketing. They've also been quite trendy with what they've posted. So, and I want to give a shout out to Warwick RAG as well for the work that they've done on this. But they ran really, I think it was a day, it might have been a week, of Black Lives Matter awareness talks. So they had a bunch of guest speakers and other guests come on and talk about issues that were relevant to the Black Lives Matter movement, and how we can apply the issue to student fundraising in general, and what we can do as fundraisers to help combat racism and issues of discrimination within student fundraising, which I thought was really, really valuable. Their posts as well have typically been interactive. I've seen that a lot of these interviews and talks that they have ran have sparked conversation amongst people who have watched them, which again is a positive thing, not only because they get to discuss the topics that they've been talking about, but also as well, like I mentioned before, if people are interactive on your posts and they engage with them, it's more likely to push your content to the top of other people's social media feeds, which is probably how it ended up on mine as well, as an example. And they've also been quite collaborative in terms of their social media content. So for example, with the Black Lives Matter awareness talks, they did interact. I think it was with the Amnesty International Society and one other society at the bottom there, which I can't see quite the logo of. But as well, just they've interacted with other charities such as on the screen, as you can see, Unseen. I think they did an interview as well with Jamie Parsons from Hope for Children, which got quite a lot of attention. So they've been quite good in terms of the amount of collaboration that they've had with charities and other student groups and organizations. So yeah, I think it's a really good social media profile of a RAG to take example from. It's not the only one. I just couldn't fit everybody in that I would have liked to. I know that in the past, like Carnival has done a good job as well. To give a shout out, I know that again, during my time at RAD, we did a particularly good job, you know, and various other RAGs across the country do similar great work to what Warwick do. So if you're looking for inspiration and ideas, just search around on different RAG social media profiles and you'll find some great content that you can take inspiration from and utilize, you know, yourself to really get your RAG like noticed or your student group noticed on your campus and to drive up engagement and your fundraising totals. And briefly as well, I wouldn't have studied in Falmouth if I did not mention this topic. I can emphasize enough the importance of sustainability when it comes to promotion of your RAG or student group. So as much as you can, try and make your promotion environmentally friendly. So reducing the usage of posters, flyers, and unrecyclable and non-biodegradable materials when you can, because naturally in the past, as it has been the tradition with RAG and student group advertisement and general marketing for companies and whatnot, the usage of posters and flyers has been often at times ridiculous. Like I said before, like when I was involved with my RAG, you know, we were guilty at times, I think, for using too many posters and flyers, as was demonstrated by complaints that we got from facilities management on campus for, you know, just putting up too much paper, which was a big no-no campus as well, because Falmouth, it's a place where it's a very environmentally friendly environment. So where you can, I would emphasize just try and reduce the usage of paper material and create a promotion strategy that places emphasis or increased emphasis on virtual methods. So given the current climate that we're living in due to COVID-19 and the way that university will change when students go back in September, the way that a lot of RAGs and student groups are going to be able to market themselves effectively is going to have to come through virtual methods such as Facebook, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email newsletters, you know, video advertisements, radio, student television, and other various bits and bobs that I'm sure you can think of. NASFA later in the year as well, even though we haven't formally announced it yet, so you're kind of the first ones to know about it. We will be launching a sustainability and fundraising campaign, which will be encouraging RAGs and student groups to be more environmentally friendly with their fundraising, and giving them the resources and plenty of guidance and advice as to how they can go about this. So the last thing that I wanted to go over with you all is that I've rambled on about how you can promote your RAG and student group and given various hints and tips as to how you can do this and kind of like the science behind it. I would really encourage you, in order to put all of that information into practice, to create a simple comms plan. And when creating a comms plan, I put a simple quote at the top here, which I heard once, which I thought was very, very good, and it's you know, it kind of forces you to think a little bit. And excuse the crass language for a second, but assume that nobody gives a shit. And what I mean by that is that you might think that you have the best marketing idea in the world or promotion plan in the world, But sometimes the likelihood is that nobody apart from your RAG or your committee is going to care about it at all. You know, you can put plenty of posts out there, and, you know, different forms of engagement, but it might not get the engagement or kind of like the recognition that you're looking for. So when creating a comms plan, I would really encourage you to simply, you know, just assume that nobody gives a shit, so that it will force you to think of creative ways that you can engage people within your network. To it will, you know, probably initiate thinking within yourself, which, you know, considers how can we go out of our comfort zone, what, you know, innovative ways, what innovative things can we do to engage people, and what are some, you know, social media or marketing tactics that no other student group or maybe even RAG across the country has done before. And if you're able to successfully ask that question and get some like positive, um, you know, actions out of that, then it will hopefully increase engagement with your social media channels and increase your fundraising totals, simply because you're doing something new that nobody's ever done before and that they've never seen. So I would encourage you all to ask yourself that question when you're making your comms plans, in order to get the most out of it. When creating a comms plan as well, I would identify your key channels of communication. So, you know, choose what social media channels you're going to focus on. Um, you know, choose what key methods of communication you're going to have with your fundraisers and with your volunteers. So whether that's, you know, frequent email newsletters, or whether that's posts through, you know, a Facebook volunteer group, for example. As I mentioned earlier as well, when creating a comms plan, know your audience. So look at those social media analytics, know who you're trying to appeal to when they're online and what their demographics are and what they're interested in. I'd really encourage you as well to set yourself targets and deadlines. If you have targets in mind in terms of how many people you want to engage on social media, you know, how many people you want to attend an information talk, whether that's in person or virtual, you know, a target on, you know, how many people you want to have, you know, registered as going or interested on the Facebook event page. If you have those type of targets and you have them written down, you're much more likely to achieve them. And if you set yourself deadlines for these goals as well, again, it gives you a clear direction in terms of where you're heading, and what your marketing and social media strategy looks like. Because I could say that, you know, my aim is to have the NASFA Facebook page have 2,000 likes. But if I don't set a goal as to when we want that to actually materialize, that could, you know, that could be within the time frame of, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and that would take way too long. And the thing about having a deadline as well is that if you find that you're underperforming and you're not quite hitting the targets that you want to, it will force you to, you know, push yourself a bit harder and to think of new ways, that you can hit that target. And there are various platforms, and I'll show you examples of this in a minute, that you can use to create a comms plan. You can simply use a traditional Excel spreadsheet, you know, an email calendar on Outlook or Gmail, or a platform called Trello, which is a free-to-use project management platform, but it's actually really, really effective. I found in my experience at RAG and other companies such as Zurich Community Trust for really, you know, planning your social media and promotion content. So just to give a few examples, these are screenshots, but the one that you see in the top left there, that's Trello. This was actually a comms plan that FXU RAD and Choose a Challenge set up together in order to promote the Everest Base Camp trek about a year and a half so ago now. And as you can see, if you can see there, it has everything from, you know, all of the marketing materials that we would use on our social media platforms. They were uploaded in one file in one place. And then we had different dates in terms of, you know, when we were to post something, whose responsibility it was, you know, when, you know, what dates we were going to flyer and canvas halls or go around campus, and, you know, what dates the information talks were, when the signups were open, and when they closed, and all of that good stuff. That was all included on there. So it was just basically one place where we could go and see absolutely everything for our, for our social media and marketing promotion plans for that trek. And just to put a little brag in there, it did work because we ended up recruiting 23 participants for our Everest Base Camp trek that year, which at the time was the highest recruitment total for that trek in the entire country for any RAG. So it did work quite well. And the screenshot at the bottom right there is just basically a simple Excel spreadsheet where I've just basically, scheduled the time of launch and the platform for certain posts and include simple text, mentioned what images are to be put on there, filled in any links that are to go with the posts, and put in the content title as well. Again, it's whatever you're comfortable with. I'd recommend Trello or Excel. That's just what I'm comfortable with. But if there is obviously any other platforms out there that you feel comfortable using, honestly, of course, feel free to use them. It's just really important to have somewhere where all of your promotion and marketing, material is planned out so that you can keep track of it, but also as well so you can be consistent with what you post and when you post it, which, as I mentioned earlier, is vital if you want to promote your RAG or student group in an effective way and increase your engagement and increase your fundraising totals. So that concludes my end of the presentation. Thank you to everybody who has listened to me ramble on. I hope you got value out of it and some hints and tips that you can take away for your RAG or student groups that you can really promote yourselves effectively in the next academic year. I know I said that we were going to go to the coffee shop, but again, I'll answer as many questions as I can now because I know that we're running short on time. But if you do have any questions, just pop them in the chat and I'll try and get through them as much as possible.
Thank you, Josh. I've got a couple of questions, and then, as you say, we can move over to the coffee shop if we don't get through them all. So have you found that there are better social media channels than others for promoting RAG?
In my experience, Facebook's the most effective, simply because one, you can post everything on there from, event pages to, pictures, video. It also has its own scheduling system, so you can schedule posts in advance, which is really handy. And typically, it's just in my experience, when I was on RAG and working at Zurich Community Trust, we found that it was much easier to try and get engagement from people on Facebook and have more meaningful conversations than it was, for example, on Instagram. The one thing that I would say as well, actually, is that if you're looking to take a light-hearted approach to things, I would recommend Twitter, simply because it's just a good way. Twitter, just for whatever reason, it just seems to be quite a good place, probably better than Facebook and Instagram, for example, for sharing videos in particular, if you wanted to place emphasis on that. But with Twitter, the only downside of it is obviously it has a character limit, and that if you want to get a point across, you have to figure out a way to do it in a very, in a very concise way. But yeah, overall, I'd recommend Facebook definitely for RAG. From my experience, anyway, other people might find Instagram more useful in particular, but that's just my experience.
Can you cross the line into spamming the audience with too many posts? Yes,
you can. So that's another key point. When I say be consistent, be consistent, of course, but be mindful of how many posts that you're putting out, because if you, for example, put out 5 posts a day, your audience is going to get fed up with you quite quickly. So I would really recommend that you limit it to 1 or 2 a day at most. Do 3 posts a day, and I would only do 3 posts a day if you are in a run-up to an event like NASFA has been with Student Opportunities Festival, to try and really promote something. But as a general rule of thumb, I would say no more than 1 to 2 posts a day, unless you're really going heavy on advertising and information talk or an event that you have coming up within the next week or so.
Thank you. How would you increase social media engagement with multiple campuses? Would you do it in one post, or would you do it over several different tailored posts?
So, I mean, for me, that's a bit of a tricky one because I didn't really have much experience doing multiple campuses. But what I would suggest is I would do it in different posts simply because the likelihood is that from my experience of being at university, different campuses have different demographics, and they're set up that way for a reason. So, for example, one campus, one university might have a campus that's more focused on one, subject area than what another campus is. So, for whatever reason, if there was a campus that placed a heavy emphasis on sports and being active, you would want to promote your marathon challenge on that campus more than the campus that has a much heavier emphasis on more traditional academic subjects such as history, politics, geography, and English and the like. So I would say it doesn't answer the question fully, but it really just does depend on the demographics of each campus. If the demographics of each campus are significantly different, I would say do it like in different posts. But if they're somewhat similar, for the sake of your time and the resources that you have, I would say try and do it in the same post if you can.
Perfect. Should we take one more and then move over to the coffee shop? So what is the best way to find out prime times when your audience is online?
So you can do this by going on the social media. You can do this by going on analytics on your social media platforms. So if you're an admin of your RAG's Facebook page, or if you have access to your RAG's Instagram account or Twitter, if you go into account settings, there should be a tab there that says basically analytics or insights. And if you click on that, it will tell you when your audience is online. So for example, for NAS for now, I can go onto our Facebook page and click on our analytics, and it will tell me when all of our lovely social media followers have engaged with our posts and when they viewed our profile. In NASFA's case, for example, it's typically between the hours of 6 till 9 p.m. or from 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning. Probably that's because when people start or before they start and when they finish work. But yeah, if you go onto your social media account settings, you should be able to find the tab that will tell you all of that and much more. Facebook analytics and Instagram insights are very, very detailed. You'll be surprised how much information you can gather from them.
Perfect. I've just put a link in the chat to the coffee shop. So if your question hasn't been answered or you have any further questions, please do come and join us and we'll be there.
Right, wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending, and hopefully we'll see you in the coffee shop. And again, I hope that you've gained quite a lot of value from this session.
Thank you, Josh.
No worries. Thanks, Ree.